Hello, everyone. Welcome to our new student virtual information session with financial aid. I am so excited you have all been able to join us this afternoon. This is a tremendously popular session, and we have some great information for you here today. I know that everyone's time is very valuable. We already have a little over 100 folks on the line with us today. So we are going to go ahead and get started. My name is Rachel Sanchez, she, her pronouns. I'm the Associate Director for New Student and Family Programs. That is the department that has been hosting this webinar series, and we're grateful to all of our campus partners who've been able to join us. I'm going to let my coworker Nina introduce herself.
Hello, everybody. I am Nina Luxon. I use she, they pronouns. I am in the New Student and Family Programs office as the program coordinator. So if you are a parent or a family member of an incoming student, you will see me a lot this summer. I work with parents and families over the summer. So really excited to tell you all about more about parent family orientation.
And speaking of parent family orientation, Nina is going to put some links in the chat. Like she said, we do parent and family orientation. Hopefully, you have all selected your SOAR date. If not, you will visit us online to do that. We also do some first year programming. We do some peer-to-peer texting assistance, as well as just kind of year-round support. So we really appreciate you being here with all of us today. Today with us, we have our financial aid team, and I'm going to go ahead and let them introduce themselves and then take it away.
Well, thank you everybody for coming today and joining us. My name is Nicholas Novello. I'm the Director of Financial Aid, and with me I have four of my staff. Riley, if you want to go next.
Hi, everyone. My name is Riley Cooper. I'm the Associate Director of Financial Aid Operations. It's nice to meet you.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Toe Hurwitz. I am a financial aid counselor. Nice to meet you all.
Hi, my name is Lisa Holt. I'm also a financial aid counselor. Happy to be here.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ariel. I'm also one of the financial aid counselors in the office. Pleasure to meet you all.
And before I turn it back over to the financial aid team, I do just want to touch on one thing very briefly, and that is we will be exclusively using the Q&A box for questions today. Please do not put any questions in the chat. They will probably go unanswered. So if you have any questions, please go ahead and put them in the Q&A. And that is it for me. Go ahead, Nicholas.
Okay, great. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and make sure that we can see that. Rachel, can you see the screen? Is that displaying okay?
Yeah, that looks great. Thank you.
Okay, wonderful. So we're going to go ahead and get started here. So, as Rachel mentioned, we're going to have a session where we're going to be going over a lot of details about financial aid, but I promise you we'll try to keep it as lively as possible and answer a lot of your questions. You will find that a lot of the questions you may have will be answered as part of the presentation, but we do have the Q&A box, and we will be looking over those questions, and my team will be working hard to answer a lot of those questions directly in the Q&A chat, so you'll get a response back from any of those. But some of them we're going to go ahead and do live at the end. So definitely have those questions come in, and we're going to go ahead and get started. All right, so I would like to start off whenever we talk about financial aid is to make sure people understand what the role of what financial aid does for the university and for you. A lot of times it's very cloudy. Everybody knows that you come to us to get money, but exactly how does that work? So our real first role is really to assist students and families with the financial aid process. You're applying via the financial aid application, the FAFSA or the California DREAM Act application to attain money from the federal or the state government. So our job in that process is to determine your eligibility for financial aid using those applications, to coordinate all of the aid that you're eligible for, the federal, state, and institutional awards, and to disperse that money into student accounts. We're also responsible, which is a little bit less visible to all of you, of maintaining compliance with all of the aid programs. As you can imagine, with money coming from the government, there are a lot of rules and regulations attached to that. So what our office is we kind of piggyback the role of being an advocate to make sure that you can maximize your eligibility and get all of the aid that you qualify for under those programs. And the rules of those are made by the federal and state governments. And then maintaining compliance, making sure that we're following all the rules and giving that out. So it's a big job, but we're a lively group and we're happy to do it. So a lot of you probably know what financial aid is, but I like to really talk about this slide about really dividing financial aid into two different types of aid. The first type of aid is gift aid, and that's the aid that everybody really likes because that's free money you don't have to pay back. So that would be your federal Pell Grants, federal grants, state grants, like the State University Grant and the Cal Grant, institutional grants and scholarships. So any additional types of aid that you get that you don't have to repay, you get it, you get to receive it to go to school. It's not a loan. That's everybody's favorite. And then there's self-help aid. So that includes federal work study, which is aid from the federal government that you can use to get a job on campus, and your wages for that job are paid for by the federal government. And then there are federal student and parent loans. Those are loans, as the word suggests, that's money that you have to repay back. And then there's private student loans. These are monies that are obtained through private lenders and banks that is also money that you would pay back. The goal is you want to maximize your gift aid with whatever you're eligible for on your application. And then you have self-help aid, you use it as needed. So this kind of gets into a little bit more detail on the different types of aid. A lot of people want to know what's the difference between a grant and a scholarship. From your perspective, not too much because it's free money, but grants tend to be programs that are coming through state and federal governments. They're based upon very hard eligibility requirements on the FAFSA or the California Dream Act application. So examples would be the federal Pell Grant, the Middle Class Scholarship, which actually is a grant, despite the name of it being a scholarship. That's a state program. The Cal Grant and the State University Grant. So those are our most common grants. And they're actually the majority of the aid that we actually give out in our office happen to be grants. Scholarships tend to be a little bit differently. Those work where you actually apply for a very specific scholarship with very specific criteria. So many students on this call, you may have had or you may have coming up a high school scholarship night where maybe you've applied for different scholarships through your high school. And if you get one of those, the organization that presents that comes and presents a check, and there's a ceremony and all of that. So those are like external scholarships. We also have internal scholarships that our continuing students can apply for each semester. We'll talk a little bit about that later, but we have an application. It's a separate application that I encourage every single one of you to fill out every semester. It opens at the beginning of the fall and the beginning of the spring, and it allows you to apply for very individualized scholarships that apply to maybe your academic program or a certain interest group that you're a part of. We talked a little bit about work study. It's money from the federal government that pays wages for a job that you work on campus. There are also third-party payments. Some students have their fees paid for by some external group. It could be an employer, it could be a military benefit, it could be something else. Those are payments that come in directly to our student financial services and pay towards your student account. If you're the recipient of a third-party payment, you probably know who you are. You know you're having your fees paid by something outside. We talked about federal student loans. Those are loans you pay back with interest in most cases to the federal government. Those are very structured federal government programs. There's federal parent loans. Those are loans that some parents elect to take out to supplement the financial aid package. They're in the parent's name and they're from the federal government. And then there are private loans. Those are also loans, but they're through private banks and lending organizations that are not the federal government. So applying for aid, there's two different ways to apply for aid. I hope that pretty much everybody on this call has already done this. But there's the federal application for the free application for federal student aid, or also known as the FAFSA. And that's the aid application that most students use. And if you are a citizen of the United States or a permanent resident, that's the application you use. And then there's the California Dream Act application that's used by our Dream Act population to access California aid. Our school code, which you don't need to remember, is 001139, but most of the time you would just select Cal State Long Beach from the drop down to get that. But citizens and permanent residents use the FAFSA. And if you are neither of those and you qualify under the California Dream Act, which you tend to know who you are, if that's the case, you use the California Dream Act application. I'm pretty sure by the thousands of aid packages we put out there that everybody on this call has probably already done this. So important application dates. So you have to apply for financial aid every single year. So this is your first year applying for college, and you've just done that. Wonderful. You're going to have to do it each year that you're in college. It is a yearly process. The priority deadline in California is March 2nd of each year. That's a really important date because when you're on time, you maximize your eligibility for state aid. State aid programs are limited, and programs like the Cal Grant and the Middle Class Scholarship, you can't even receive them if you're late. So being on time is really important. The priority deadline for 26-27, this upcoming year, as you probably already know, is March 2nd, 2026. And the application priority deadline for next year, we're already thinking about next year for the 27-28 year, is going to be March 2nd, 2027. You can get a jump on the FAFSA and the California Dream Act application in October. October 1st, they open up. So if you've just gone through the FAFSA process, don't get too comfortable. Remember that it's going to open up again in the fall. And a pro tip is to make sure you do it early. It just gets it out of the way, gets it in the pipeline so that you know that you're on time. And applying early matters. I talked about your aid eligibility. These items here, the state university grant and the middle class scholarship, but also the Cal grant, they are dependent on you being on time. And if you're a student who was late, you wouldn't qualify for those necessarily. You wouldn't qualify for the Cal grant or the middle class scholarship at all. And state university grant tends to run out, so you need to be on time. So it's really, really important to get your application done by March 2nd. And I would recommend not waiting till the last minute. It gets really stressful. Definitely get it done well before that. So the aid process, from a standpoint of a student, I think a lot of people think that the applying for aid is really, really complicated. It can be, but it isn't for most students. It's pretty easy. You apply, which is you fill out the FAFSA or the California Dream Act application. You select the school code. We then review that in our office, as every college does, and then we determine eligibility and we send you an award letter. Or if there's a reason you have to turn in additional documentation, which a very small minority gets selected for a process called verification, where the federal government requires that you turn in some additional documentation, we let you know about that and tell you exactly what you need to do. And if you get stuck in that process, or if you're going through that process right now, we're here to help. Definitely contact us, and we have a whole counseling staff that can help you with that. So how do we determine financial eligibility? So a lot of people think that the financial aid office looks at these applications, and individually we look at them and we say, this person deserves to get this because their family income is this amount. It actually doesn't work that way. It's a pretty objective process that comes really from the federal government, and then the California Dream Act application mirrors the federal government FAFSA process. And the application effectively takes all the information that you input, your family income, assets that the family owns, family size. So it's a combination of questions that you are answering. And for FAFSA filers, it also takes into account the information that gets downloaded from the IRS into the application, or in the California Dream Act, the information you're inputting from your taxes. The application then automatically calculates your level of need and your student aid index amount. And your aid is simply based upon that. It's not a subjective process at all. And that's the information that determines whether you qualify for the Pell Grant or whether you qualify for the state university grant. It's not a certain level of income equals a certain amount. It's all of the factors in a very complex calculation that is done by the federal and the state government. And then the resulting aid index number is what's used to give you aid. We're a public institution, so unlike private institutions that are much, much, much higher cost, as you probably know if you've looked at schools, they also from that have a lot of their own types of money that they have a little bit more discretion on. We exclusively use the federal and state aid programs that are tied to this formula. So a little bit more about federal work study. A lot of students, the common question is asked about the federal work study award that I have in my package. If I accept that, do I get paid that up front and then I work it off, or do I get paid as I work? It's a limited opportunity with limited funding. So if you are awarded federal work study and you're interested into it, you definitely want to accept it. And then you would need to find a job on campus that's a federal work study job. On our Career Center webpage, which there's a link to on your award letter, actually, you can go there and you can look for federal work study jobs. There may be some that are posted now, but there'll be a lot more once school begins. And if you have a federal work study award and you apply for a federal work study job and you get that job, you would work hourly, and then as you work those hours, you get paid from your pool of federal work study money. So the money doesn't disperse ahead of time. You don't receive it ahead of time. You actually get it in a paycheck. And if you've already paid your tuition and fees, or your tuition and fees are paid by state grants, you can use that money for whatever you need it for, your living expenses, anything that comes up. So it's not a disbursement. And you would have to find a job on campus. You have to interview for that. You do need to go through that yourself. The employer does need to hire you, so you may want to apply for several positions. And if for some reason you weren't able to get an opportunity or you don't qualify for federal work study, you can look for a job on campus that is a non-federal work study job. As a matter of fact, the majority of campus jobs actually aren't federal work study required, and that's because federal work study is a very limited program. So even if you don't receive the program or you don't get a federal work study job, you can still look for a job on campus and you'd be paid pretty much the same way. It's just the money's not coming from the federal government. Talked a little bit about scholarships before. Again, these need to be applied for. And I want everybody, challenge everybody on this call to fill out the Beach Scholarship application. If you just go to the financial aid website, we have a link for that. The fall application is going to open up in August, right as school is beginning. It's not open right now. And you would go in and you would submit that application, and it's a smart application. You don't have to look through 600 or 700 different scholarships and figure out which one applies to you. Instead, what you would do is you log in. It knows who you are. It knows your major, your GPA, where you went to high school, all of this different information. And it narrows down based on the criteria, the ones that you may qualify for. So if you're a computer science major, you're not going to you're not going to have to look through scholarships that are only for music students. So it makes it very, very easy. You just need to apply. And if there is anything else that's required, like a personal statement or an essay, it will tell you exactly what that is. And then you can input that to apply for that particular scholarship. Scholarships are free money. It's a different application. It takes a little bit of work, although we've taken a lot of the work out of that because this does a lot of the searching for you. Don't leave money on the table. Apply for scholarships and do it every single semester. The fall application is for scholarships that come in the spring. The spring application is for scholarships that come into the fall. And as I said before, this is for our continuing students. So since you're all just starting, you would start with the fall application for spring. So cost of attendance. So most all of you on this call have likely received a financial aid award letter. And at the top of that, there's a detailed cost of attendance section that talks about the estimated annual cost of attending a university. Now, that cost of attendance isn't necessarily what you're going to pay out the door for it because it includes a lot of living expenses and things that you have a lot of control over. But we're required by law to estimate that. And the estimate is based upon the broad base of people. So it really needs to include even students who have, they're renting their own apartment and have a lot of additional expenses, as well as students who are just living at home down the street, which many of our students are, and they have very limited living expenses. They're just paying for the tuition and fees. So there's really direct and indirect. Direct are things we charge you for. That's going to be tuition and fees for every student and for those who live in on-campus housing. For everybody else, housing is going to be an indirect expense because if you're renting an apartment off campus, or if you're living at home, or you're living with a relative, or you have a roommate, your cost can vary. It depends on the choices you make. The cost of attendance is just there to give you an idea of the most it could probably cost in your situation. And so, we have to break this down. All these categories are on your award letter and you can see them, but it's broken down into tuition, which is a direct cost, mandatory fees, which is also a direct cost, living expenses, the housing, and there's an allowance for if you're a commuter living with parents. It's obviously going to be much lower. It may be zero for you if you're not paying your family rent or anything like that. Where on-campus housing and living on an apartment off campus is going to be more expensive. Food, again, this can vary. It depends on your situation. It depends on your choices. Depends on a lot of different things. But there's an amount in there for that. Books, course material, supplies, and equipment, which can vary. There's an amount for that. Transportation, and then miscellaneous personal expenses. You're more than just students. You're people. You're young and you're going to do things like, go out for pizza, go out and do some entertainment. It's important to enjoy life while you're in school as well. It's just important to have a plan and have a budget for that. We take that all into account. So these bottom line numbers, 28,860, that is not our tuition that we're going to charge you. That's just the potential of what it could cost to go to school if your budget was all of these items. The law requires us to really tell you the most that it could cost, not really just tell you our tuition and fees. It's more about disclosure. The real important numbers for most students are these top ones, the 6,838 and the 1,910. And they're the same, whether tuition fees is the same, whether you're at home with your parents, living on campus housing or living off campus. And your award letter has, your net cost in your award letter is your cost of attendance, your personal cost of attendance, minus your financial aid eligibility. That's your net cost. And your true cost really depends upon, how much of that cost of attendance. Again, if you're living at home down the street, you don't have a car payment, you're taking the bus, you may have very, very low living expenses. You're really just dealing with the tuition and fees. Whereas if you're a non-traditional student, if you have other expenses, you may have a higher cost of attendance. It just depends. And so we have some examples here. I'm not going to take too much time on this to want to get through a lot of things, but these are just a couple of examples. If you've got a student that their direct cost, they live on campus, so their tuition, fees, housing, and meal plan, the direct cost is 27,302. And then if their indirect costs are 7,160, their total estimated cost of attendance is 34,462. Then you look at your financial aid eligibility. There's the free money, the Pell Grant, the Cal Grant. Your total grant aid is $14,000. So that immediately reduces this. And then we'll say you take out some student loans. Your total grant and financial aid offer is 19,733. So you just do a simple math equation. Your cost of attendance minus your aid eligibility, that's what the student's net cost is. And that assumes that their indirect costs are the actual real costs for them. We have some other examples here. This is another direct cost for an on-campus student. And this is a student that, has a remaining balance due, 3,784 each semester. And so this is just another example. Your example is going to be different. Every one of you is going to have a slightly different situation because all of your indirect costs are a little bit different. So it's important to kind of think about that. Are you living on campus? Are you off campus? What other expenses are you going to be paying? And then just do that math with your financial aid package. We have a few other examples here as well. But again, it's very, very much dependent on your situation. So appeals. So this is a big point of questions that we normally have. So when you file the FAFSA or the California DREAM Act application, I think everybody knows, you may have noticed that the federal government and the state government is using your tax returns, your family's tax returns from 2 years ago. In most cases, for most people, that's pretty similar to what it is now, or maybe people are making more money now. Hopefully they are, but that's not always the case. Sometimes 2 years ago, your family may have been making more money. Maybe it's a family business. Maybe two parents had a job and then one person got a different job or they got laid off or your hours got cut or anything may have happened and your financial situation is significantly different than it was in the past. That's a reason why we would want to you may want to look at doing an appeal. That would be an income appeal. There's also appeals for cost of attendance. Our cost of attendance tends to fit most students are way below what our cost of attendance is in their real life. But there are some students who have non-traditional situations. Perhaps you are a non-traditional student and you have dependents, you have children of your own. That is going to cause more money for childcare. Perhaps you have a medical situation or some other cost that is not really captured there. There's also a way to look at increasing your cost of attendance. So we have different types of appeals that we'll talk about here. You do need to document the reason when you submit an appeal, and you should be very clear about what that is. My parents were both employed 2 years ago, but mom has lost their job and we only have one income now. Our income was this, it is now this. And you'll also have to turn in documentation of that. With her income, it tends to be like a tax return or other information that are pay stubs. If you're at a business, it could be about the business, but you follow the instructions on the form. Our form is extremely smart and it helps you through what that is. If it's a cost of attendance appeal, you've got to substantiate that cost. So say, for instance, if you have to rent a larger than normal apartment because you're not a traditional student and you have two dependents and you have a spouse and you're the only one in school and you're also holding things down, you would want to, substantiate that with maybe a lease and explain what is going on. That's just an example. It could be anything. So again, I talked a little bit about income appeals. Your 26-27 application is using 2024 tax year. If your income now is significantly lower than that, you'd probably want to do an appeal. We'd actually recommend it. And so our income appeals are available on our website, and those tend to go live in the very early part of May. So you're going to want to go ahead and have us do that and follow that through. Cost of attendance appeals, again, that's about if the cost of attendance that we provided doesn't really fit your situation, you may want to consider doing a cost of attendance appeal. You can also use this form as well if you are, for instance, you may have marked on your Cal State Apply application that you're living at home with your parents, but now you've actually decided to live on campus or you're going to be renting an apartment off campus. No problem. That can be handled on the appeal form as well. And that's a pretty easy change that we can make. So we can adjust your cost of attendance in that case. One thing to be aware of, though, changing your cost of attendance will not change your eligibility for federal and state grants. And that's simply because the federal and state grants, they give you the maximum if you qualify for it, regardless of your living and your cost of attendance. The federal and state government they don't hold out based on cost of attendance. It can affect the middle class scholarship award a little bit. So that if you do have a situation where you're qualified for that and you have a different cost of attendance that can be documented, you may want to explore that. If you have questions about that, we're here to help your personal situation. You can certainly get in contact with us or come and see us here in our office. This is a big one as you continue as a student, satisfactory academic progress. So when you apply for financial aid through the FAFSA and the California DREAM Act application, you can meet all the qualifications for financial aid. But the federal government does require, and they require this of all schools that give out federal and state aid, that students are meeting satisfactory academic progress. So it means you need to maintain a minimum grade point average. You need to be passing the majority of your units, pace of progress. The whole idea is to get to the degree. So you need to be passing classes. So if you're withdrawing from lots of classes, you might want to talk with your advisor about getting a load of classes that work so you don't have to do those withdrawals because they count against you. Maximum time frame as well is you need to finish your degree within 150% of the required units. Most undergraduate degrees are done in 120 units. And so you need to do your degree in no more than 180 units in most cases. So it gives you some time, some wiggle room if you take a class and you got to retake a class, or you have to take an elective, or you're interested in another elective, you change your major. There's room for that in there. But it's really important to work with advising, to go to SOAR, to work with your advisor on your courses. And if you're having difficulty, seek help early so that you don't run into issues with this. Our SAP standards, satisfactory academic progress standards, the basic one is you need to maintain a cumulative GPA of 2.0, which is also the minimum really to be in a good standing as a student. You need to be passing 2/3 of your classes at least. Hopefully we're going to get 100%, but you need to be passing with a passing grade, not a grade of withdrawal and not a grade of fail, of 67% or more of your classes. And you want to be on pace to finish within 150% of 120 units, so within 180 units. It can be done. All of you can do that. Advising each and every semester is the key. For our students who are in-state students, which is the vast majority, probably most everybody on this call, you probably are familiar with Web Grants for Students. That's the portal for state aid, mostly for the Cal Grant Middle Class Scholarship. If you're a student who is awarded the Chafee Grant or the Golden State Teacher Grant and other grants, that's the portal to that. You should have a Web Grants for Students account. And that login, if you can search for Web Grants for Students, but it's mygrantinfo.csac.ca.gov. And so you should create an account if you haven't had that already. Most of our students who are in the Cal Grant program already have accounts. So how do we communicate to students? So one of the biggest responsibilities you have as a student, not just when you're waiting for your financial aid package or you're paying your bill, but throughout your course as a student, is to be aware of what's going on your CSULB portal. You want to log into that portal. I would recommend at least once a week. The entire time you're a student, there's a convenient item on there you've seen called the to-do list. If there's anything, any area, not just financial aid, needs you to do, we're going to put that on your to-do list. So we primarily communicate to students via email. And I know email is not a popular means of communication, but it is important. Have to be responsible for what's in your email. So definitely be aware of your email, link it to your phone, do whatever you got to do to monitor that, but then also check your portal. If we're asking for documentation, we're going to email you about that, and we're going to put the specific instructions and what we need on the portal. Please know that if we ever ask you for documentation in the financial aid office, it means we're required to do it by the federal or the state government. We don't require any documents that are not required by the federal or state government. We're a state institution. All of our aid tends to be mostly federal and state aid, so we do the bare minimum. So if it's required, it's not because we want to hassle you, it's because we're required in order to be able to get the money from the federal and the state government. Remember, we're your advocates in this process. We want you to be successful. This is what we need to do to provide to the federal and state government in order for them to send us the money to apply to your account. So the instructions are on there, but if you get stuck, if we're asking for something and your situation is more difficult or you're not sure what to do, that's what we're here for. We're here to help out. So come and visit us. Come visit us over in Brotman Hall on the first floor at our windows, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. We're here all summer as well. You can make an appointment. Definitely reach out. We can help you out if you're stuck. And parents, if you've applied for, or if you will be applying for a direct Parent Plus loan, we'll email you regarding what needs to be done with that. If there's anything at all beyond the application. And so that's done directly to the federal government. There's information on our website about how to go about that. And again, if you get stuck, we're here to help. These are some things we want everybody on this call and beyond, everybody who goes here to know. Make sure you remember each year to submit your FAFSA or your California DREAM Act application. That's the most important thing that you can do as a student. Each year, if you don't submit this, you can't get the aid. And if you're not on time, you could be leaving money on the table with those state aid programs. Stay alert for communications from our office, email, and your portal. If you log into the portal every week and check your to-do list just as a kind of a quick to-do, you can't go wrong. You will not miss anything. Even if you miss an email, you'll see those to-do list items there. And again, that's beyond our office. Any office that needs something from you is likely going to put it on your to-do list. Submit any requested documentation. Don't wait. We put deadlines on there to motivate you to get that in. If you're having trouble with it, reach out earlier rather than later. Our office is not hard to get in contact with. You can walk in any day, any business day of the week from 9 to 5 down on the first floor of Brotman Hall. You can reach out to us to make an appointment. If you go on our website, there's a whole contact us section where you can make an appointment. We do virtual appointments as well. You can submit if it's just a low stakes question that you just want to get a response to. We don't do via email, but we have a ticketing system. We respond to most tickets within 1 business day, 2 business days during really peak periods. It tends to be pretty quick, and we can get you information. There are not long general lines. Maybe the first day of school, a lot of people want to talk with us, but most days you can talk to somebody pretty readily if you need to. Be mindful of your enrollment and eligibility for financial aid. Your financial aid is offered at a full-time basis, meaning the Pell Grant that we tell you you're eligible for and all the aid is based on full-time enrollment. Full-time enrollment is 12 units. I think most students are encouraged to take 15. It really depends upon your program and your situation. But at a very minimum, 12 units is necessary to get all of your aid. Different programs can vary, but if you're 12 or more, you will get 100% of the aid that is offered to you. And if you have anything that is you're not sure of, contact our offices if you have any questions. That's what we're here for. We're here to help out. And remember, financial aid is an annual process. Every year we have a few students that forget this and they miss the deadline, and they're very disappointed that they missed out on a state aid program that has a hard deadline. It's not something that we have purview in our office. So make sure that you calendar. We all have these things. We have phones. Calendar on your phone every year. I think a good a good happy medium if you're not a go-getter that's going to get it done in October. Do the FAFSA during the winter break. That's a great opportunity, that nice quiet time in January before you come back. Get it done during winter break. I want everybody to put a reminder in their email or in their phone calendar and have it renew each year right after New Year's. You can't go wrong. If you can do it earlier, even better. But what's important is you get in before the deadline. And here's how to get in touch with us. We have a phone number, and like most places, if you call the phones in certain times, we have peak times. Lunchtime tends to be very popular. People are on their lunch break, and we get a lot of calls. Pro tip, if you need to talk to us and you want to call us, calling earlier in the morning or later in the afternoon tends to have lower wait times, and our phones are open from 8 to 5. If you go online, we have a chat bot that answers a lot of questions, a lot of basic questions. You can read all about the different aid programs online. You can submit a ticket if you just have a basic question and if you don't mind getting an email back within a day or so, you can do that there. And you can also go in person as well. You can walk in without an appointment, and at the intake windows on the first floor of Brotman Hall, which is the administration building right in the center of campus. You can come in anytime from 9 to 5, and you can ask your question. Most questions will be answered right at the window. And, if we need to have a higher level counseling appointment, we'll work that out with you as well. And you can also make in-person, virtual, and phone appointments with a financial aid counselor through the Beach Connect mobile app as well. And so all the links there are on our website. So again, I'm going to repeat myself, but I think it's important. The 26-27 financial aid application. I think most people here have done it, but if you haven't done it already, you are still encouraged to apply, even if you're beyond the deadline. You can still get federal aid, and that is still available. The income and cost of attendance appeals will be open in May. That's coming up very shortly, so look for those on our forms website, which is, if you go to the financial aid website, you can easily get there. And your aid will be adjusted based on enrollment. If you are a full-time student, you'll get the full amount that's on your package. But if you're a part-time student, if you're less than 12 units, your aid will be prorated depending on the program. The federal Pell Grant is very sensitive. Even at 11, 10, 9, 8 units, it gets prorated by the percentage. Others are based on 75% or 50%, and some aid programs aren't eligible less than a certain number of units. So be full-time if you absolutely can be, and I think most students are, so it's really important. And so I've got our QR code here, but I think we're going to transition now to our question and answer section. I know that we've been answering a lot of questions via the text, and so I'm going to welcome Riley has put together a select group of questions, and I'm going to have him go ahead and ask me live. Go ahead, and if you could ask the question live, I'll go ahead and answer it.
Great. Thank you all for your great questions. We're going to go ahead and go over some of the top questions. Nicholas, one of the first questions we have is, when is tuition due and how is it paid through financial aid?
Yeah, absolutely. So tuition is going to be due, I believe it's about 9 days before classes begin. I think the payment due date, I believe it's August 17th. Is that right, Riley? I think you have it in front of you.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So the tuition is going to be due on August the 17th. And anybody who owes a balance, generally if you don't have enough financial aid to cover that, more than half of our students' aid packages cover all of their balance. But if there happens to be a difference in that, you will receive a bill, and the due date is going to be August 17th. And that date is strategically after the financial aid disbursements come in. So the way it works is this. You have your financial aid package. Most everybody on this call has received a financial aid package at this point in time. And I believe the dates are on there as well. But the aid will begin dispersing about 10 days before classes begin. So that will start happening on August the 14th. And what happens on that day is this. That's the date that the money comes from the federal and the state government to the university and begins applying to your balance. So let me give you an example. I'm going to use completely fake round numbers. We'll say you have registered for classes and you have a balance of, I'll make this number up. It's not the exact number, but we'll say you have a $4,500 balance due. But you know that you're going to be getting a full Pell Grant and maybe you're getting a Cal Grant. That's a profile of a lot of our students. And if you add those two numbers up, those are greater than the $4,500. And you might think, what do I need to do? The answer is you just need to make sure that you're registered in full time. Because what will happen is on August 14th, those monies will come in as long as you're registered. They will pay that balance, and you will actually, in that case, have a credit balance for living expenses, which will eventually be sent to you by our Student Financial Services Department. And that comes a number of days later, closer to the first day of classes. So the point is that the due date for payment is after the financial aid gets dispersed, as long as you're enrolled. So enrolling is very important. And if you have to pay anything out of pocket, if there's a difference between your aid and what you owe, the Student Financial Services will make you aware of that in the bill, and you would need to pay that or set up a payment plan, which can be done so you don't have to pay it all up front by the due date. So it's important to kind of plan that out early. Also, too, if you are getting a loan, you would need to, if you want to use a loan, you would need to accept it on your financial aid package. You'd have to log into your portal, click financial aid, and if you want that loan to count towards what's going to disperse, you're going to need to accept that loan. Loans are optional. We don't accept them on your behalf because not everybody is going to need a loan or wants a loan. So the key is to know that August 17th is the payment deadline. It is after the financial aid comes in, and you would want to make sure you either make a payment for what you owe or enroll in a payment plan before that date if you owe anything at all. And make sure you accept loans if you want to take those out.
Thank you, Nicholas. The next question we have here is, I did not receive my financial aid package. What should I do in this case?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a great question. There's a number of reasons why students haven't received a financial aid package. The number one reason we've noticed is that they may not have noticed the financial aid email come in. You may want to check your junk mail. So the first thing I would do is I would check your junk mail. Look at the latest part of March, around the 25th of March through now, to see if you see anything from CSULB financial aid. And if you are using multiple email addresses, you might want to check all of them. It really depends upon what email address you put on your Cal State Apply application. We've seen students that did receive it and didn't realize it, or they received a lot of offers from different schools they applied for, and it might have just gotten lost in the shuffle. So you'd want to check that first. The other thing is, if you log into your portal and click financial aid, if you have a financial aid package, you'll see it there. If you haven't logged in, you would want to check that out as well. If you've done both of those things, and you definitely don't see a financial aid package, you didn't get an email, you're going to want to check your FAFSA or your California Dream Act application. I would log in and check which schools you sent it to. Make sure that Cal State Long Beach is listed amongst those schools. Every year we have a number of students, and it's a common mistake where they'll put Long Beach City College by mistake and they never sent it to us. If we're not listed there, we didn't receive your FAFSA. That could be a reason why we don't have your financial aid package. If you've done all that, you see, yes, Cal State Long Beach is in there. I don't have a package. You'd want to contact our office. Sometimes it could be something simple, like there's a typo in your social security number when you did your Cal State Apply that doesn't match with your FAFSA application, so they didn't connect. We can help you fix that. Or it could be anything else. It could be that you owe paperwork and you're not aware of that. So definitely get in contact with us if you know that you've given our school code on your FAFSA, and you've checked your junk mail and you've checked your portal to see if you have a package. I would say I talked to at the Day at the Beach event, the event that I think many of you were probably at a few weeks ago. I talked to about 5 or 6 people that were in that situation, and 4 out of the 5 or 6 of them actually did have a package. They just didn't realize it was in their junk mail or they hadn't logged in. So definitely log in. You may find it.
Thank you so much. The next question that we have here is, when will I be getting my middle class scholarship or Cal Grant offers?
Yeah. So let's start with the middle class scholarship. The processes work a little bit differently. So the middle class scholarship is a very different type of financial aid program. The middle class scholarship, most of you probably notice on your financial aid package that you have an estimated middle class scholarship. And the reason why it's estimated is because the middle class scholarship is dependent on the state of California budget, which is not finalized yet. And the state doesn't even calculate those actual awards until the very end of the summer, pretty much after you've begun school. and then they start sending those to the institutions. Additionally, the middle class scholarship is a very sensitive award. And what I mean by that is the middle class scholarship is based upon all the aid you receive and your cost of attendance. And it actually even takes into account aid that you receive later. So say, for instance, your current financial aid package is at a certain level, but then we'll say you get a really large scholarship that from a high school organization that we didn't know about, and then we get it and we add it to your package. That's going to impact your middle class scholarship. And here's the reason why. The middle class scholarship was designed by the California state legislature. This came from the legislature. It was a law that was passed that effectively tried to give additional money on top of the financial aid package to students based upon their cost of attendance and the aid they receive. The downside of that means if your aid package changes, it can actually impact the amount of money the state will give you for the middle class scholarship. This is in the law. It is definitely, I will be very upfront with you, it's controversial because a lot of folks are being like, well, if they tell me I'm going to get this amount and then I get, I qualify for more aid through an appeal, you mean to tell me they're going to pull money back in a situation like that? And the answer is often yes. And it has to do with the way that the state calculates that. And people have a lot of opinions about that. I know I would as well if I was a student. And, I think dialoguing with the state legislature is really important. If you have questions about that, you might want to provide those stories to the state legislature of your area because it is definitely a confusing thing. But because of that process where it involves all of your aid package and it gets determined by the state later, these awards are added in September when they're solidified. And the reason they're added at that time is the worst thing we would want to do is give you an award at a certain level, and then the state changes the award amount, and then you got to give money back. If you've ever gotten money and then you've heard like, oh, by the way, just kidding, we actually need a third of that back. So that is the reason why it's implemented that way. And the vast majority of our student applicants actually get the program. It's a great program. It's a lot of money. And the folks that benefit from it, which is most students on financial aid, it's actually the single program that more students get than any other program. Because of the size of that, we want to make sure that we don't have large amounts of students that have to give money back. So it will be posted in September. So it's money that you will get as a separate disbursement after the fact. And it has to do with the logistics of the way that program works. And we found a way to optimize that with as little pain to students as possible. We don't want to bill you for it. The Cal Grant is a different process. The Cal Grant, if you listed Cal State Long Beach as your primary school on your Cal Grant application, if we were like your first choice, we likely have you on our roster and you may have received a Cal Grant on your financial aid package. Many of you, I would say a very large number of you who expect to get a Cal Grant that know you're going to get a Cal Grant may not see it yet. And that's simply because the Cal Grant, the California Student Aid Commission will only put one school, the money on one school's roster at a time. When it becomes apparent that you're going to our school, we will claim you, and there's other processes to that, and then we will go ahead and get that updated. A lot of that happens during the summer, so you may see changes in that during the summer. Riley, do you have any other details to add to that? I know that that's an area of expertise in your area. Did I leave anything out on that?
No, that was very comprehensive. I think it's just a very takes a little bit of time for us to finalize awards, and we don't like to give out money that is not guaranteed to students. So that's why it usually comes in a little bit later. And then for Cal Grant, we had some questions about why they might not see their Cal Grant award yet. And does that come in a little bit later from CSAC?
Yeah, and so I think I started answering that question. And a lot of the reasons why some of you who know you're going to get a Cal Grant or you know from CSAC that you're going to get a Cal Grant don't see it on your aid package here, it's because the California Student Aid Commission doesn't yet know that you're coming here and not some other school. You might be on another school's roster. That will all catch up during the summer. This is extremely common, and it's just the way that the state aid program works.
Excellent. We have another question too about federal work study. If we could just maybe go over a little bit, is it a disbursement? How do I get a federal work study job? What happens after I get a work study job?
Yeah, absolutely. So federal work study is different than all your other awards. It's money that is so most students who have a federal work study award have around a $4,000 award. So the way that works is that's money that the federal government is willing to pay if you get a job on campus that's a federal work study job. And effectively, that is the money that will be paid to you if you work for it. So if you say, for instance, I'm a student, and I have a federal work study job, I accept my federal work study award, and then I go on the Career Center webpage and I look for jobs. There's a link to the Career Center right on your award letter. So if you have your award letter and you got a work study job, scroll down, you'll see a whole section on that. You can click to get to the Career Center and you can search for jobs. So say I'm a student, I'm interested in a job. We'll say in the financial aid office, we'll say we have a job available. So I apply for that job. I get selected for an interview. I go in, I interview, and I'm offered that job. And so then, I work out my schedule and we'll say I'm able to work 5 hours a week. I'm a student full time and I'm just working a little bit. I put in my timesheet and I get paid for the pay period for 5 hours for that week. That money is paid from that $4,000 pool. So if you earn all of it, you can get all of it. If you can't work that much because you have limited time, you'll earn what you earn, but you can earn up to that $4,000. So the key is it's not dispersed to you up front like the rest of your aid is. It does not disperse 10 days before classes begin. You have to accept it if you want it. You have to find a job on campus. It's a federal work study job. And then you have to work, and then you're paid through a normal payroll like a normal job. So it's just like having a normal job. It's just the money is coming from that pool of money. And the advantage of having a federal work study award is that for the employer on campus, they're more likely to want to hire you with a federal work study award because they're not having to pay out of their budget. Some offices don't have a budget for student workers and rely on this. Others do have a budget, but they would much rather pay a student through this program because the government is paying it. So accept your award, look for a job on the Career Center. The link is on, you can link to it from the website, just search for Career Center, or you can click on your award package. There's a link directly to that. Search for jobs, interview for a job, and then you'll be paid the hours you work.
Excellent. We have a question from parents. My student was only offered maybe a loan, an unsubsidized or a subsidized loan. What are some other options for me to help meet my cost of attendance?
Sure, absolutely. So, the package is definitely going to be based upon the student aid index that came in through the financial aid application. And, we will award the maximum of what folks qualify for. So assuming there's no change in income and there's not an appeal situation, your income is the same as what it was. Other options would include, number one, I would highly recommend applying for scholarships, both the internal scholarship application, which I know would start for scholarships in spring, but also you can also search for external scholarships as well. There are many out there on the internet. You definitely got to do some work for it, but that is definitely something I would do. Additionally, in addition to student employment is another option. Even if you don't have a federal work study job, you can apply for a regular student assistant job on campus that has nothing to do with federal work study. That's also on the Career Center website. If a student is interested in making some money, that is one way they can do it as well. And there are also additional loan programs as well. There is the Federal Parent Plus Loan Program, which is a program that will offer up to $20,000 per year that a parent can take out in their own name. That loan, is that the best loan? It depends. That loan has certain parameters to it, but you as a parent may have access to a loan that may be of better terms than that. So I would highly recommend you go onto our website, look at our types of aid, and you can read about that. We link out to the federal government webpage where it talks about the interest rates. And the interest rates for next year haven't been determined yet. Those will not be posted by the federal government until June, but it's coming up. And the rates, they've been on the higher side as all rates have been, but this year currently they're in the 8% range. It's not the cheapest loan that's out there. You may have the ability to qualify for something lower. You may have other options like home equity. I've seen parents use that if that's an option to them. Personal loans. The best thing to do is look at all your options. There are also private student loans that students can take out, often with a cosigner by the parent, that can be very competitive. It just depends upon your credit. And those are private loans. They're through any bank that's out there that offers them. If you do a search for private student loans, you'll see plenty of products that are out there, including ones that you've probably seen advertised that are, very reputable and are out there. But I would recommend comparing all the different options. Compare the Parent Plus to the private loan. Look at the terms. Is there a fee to take out the loan? What is the interest rate? Is that interest rate fixed or variable? Are there flexible payment terms? So I would recommend that if you're looking at those types of options, to look at a variety of options. So generally speaking, if you have, limited aid that you've received that you qualify for, and you're not somebody who's had an income difference, you're not going to do an appeal. I would look at applying for scholarships, looking at employment if that's an option. It's not always an option depending on the student's major and their schedule. And also, if you're looking at loans, compare different loan options.
Excellent. That sort of wraps up our main questions. Maybe for our last question, for accepting financial aid, do I need to accept my loans right now? When do I need to accept my loans? Do I need to accept my grant aid?
Great. So we'll start with the grant aid. So grant aid, we went ahead and made an assumption. I made an assumption, and I think we might be right on this, that every single one of you would not say, I don't want free money. So we've accepted all the grants on your behalf. So if you were to log in, you're going to notice right away, if you have a Pell Grant, if you have a state university grant, you have a Cal Grant, it's going to show as already accepted. So you do not need to accept grants. The only items that you would need to think about accepting would be if you want federal work study. If you're even possibly interested in federal work study, just accept it and then look for a job. If you don't get a job or you don't want to, you decide not to do it, you don't have to do anything else. Nothing will happen. You won't receive the money. You have to work for it. For loans, only accept loans if you know you want a loan and you know you need a loan. So you might not know the answer to that question right now. If you're a family that either perhaps is paying all out of pocket or some out of pocket, or you have some grants but not quite enough because of your qualifications, you might be thinking, you and your parent might be thinking about different strategies for that. So the question is, do I have to accept the loan now? No, you do not. You can accept the loan at any time during the academic year from now up until the end of spring semester. So you can do it at any time. And also, if you accept a loan and you change your mind, no problem. Even if the money is already dispersed and you have it and you realize, oh my gosh, I don't need it, you can return it. You can cancel that loan. The federal loans, as long as you either cancel them or you return the money within 120 days, there's no fees for that. It goes away. So it's really, and you'll get all this information when you accept the loan, and there's a entrance counseling you have to do, and there's a promissory note, all this online that you have to sign. It goes over all of that, but you have the ultimate flexibility with that. The other thing to be aware of as well is after add drop period is over, you may notice if you haven't accepted a loan, the loan will disappear. It doesn't mean you're not eligible. We cancel loans proactively at that time. You can request them back. We have a form to request them. Your eligibility remains. So if you get into a spot deeper into the year, you didn't need it, but then something changed and you realize you do need the loan, we can help get that back for you. So we're here to help out. And we have a specific form for that on our website as well. So you don't need to accept the loan right away. Accept it if you need it. You can change your mind. If you're not sure what to do, talk with us. You have all the control when it comes to loans. And our goal is loans aren't good or bad. It depends. If you're utilizing them to make this all work and make it so you can invest in your education and get across the finish line, that's a good use of loans. If you're just accepting everything because it's there and you're using it to upgrade your lifestyle, that's probably not a good use of loans. You might want to come talk with us about budgeting or talk with your family about that. At any rate, we're here to help out. So definitely, be thoughtful on those and know that time is on your side. You can make those decisions as you need to.
Thank you. That concludes
Wonderful.
our questions. Thanks.
Thank you so much to Nicholas and to Riley and the whole financial aid team in the Q&A. They were just flying through those questions, and we really appreciate y'all getting those answered for folks. So just to wrap up today, this is the financial aid number. Again, it's option 4 when you dial in. You can also visit them online. Of course, they have tons of really helpful info. If you have questions about parent and family orientation, student orientation, when you register for classes, all that good stuff, I really encourage you to call our office or visit our website. We are always available to answer any questions you might have. And let's see if I can get this to change. Thank you again to our financial aid team. Our next virtual information session is May 6th, just like this one. It's on a Wednesday. It's from 4 p.m. to 5 p.m., just like this one, and it is the exact same Zoom link. So we do send out the Zoom link every week if you have selected dual enrollment. For those of you who don't know, dual enrollment is if you are earning college credits prior to enrolling here at the university. So not talking about getting your AA at a community college, although some students do, more like concurrent dual enrollment. So you're getting some college units while you're still enrolled in high school, usually is when that's happening. So if you have questions about that, how it works, what can be transferred here to the university, then that session will be for you. We'll have a lot of folks on the line from academic advising. So with that, I am very excited to say thank you and that we will see you this summer at orientation. We can't wait to meet all of you in person and have a great and wonderful day. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye-bye.